Hey guys, it is the end of the school year and I am super excited to be done. Like, I'm so excited to close the books and finish them. Every time we get through with one of the books that we've been working on, we have a little celebration. I'm really excited to be done. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I love that about this time of year is that we can say, we accomplished it, we got it done, and now let's stop for a while because that was awesome and now we need a break. But something interesting happens at this time of year that while I'm so excited to be done with all of it, I am at the very same time super excited about next year. I'm really jazzed because all these people are putting up videos and Facebook posts and just putting all of the options out there for what they're doing next year. But it's also really exciting to see what is available, both online and in person, and to start thinking about what can we do next year that's going to be just perfect for each of my kids. So even though I just can't wait to be done with this year, I am equally excited to start the next year. So here's the thing. When it comes to this time of year, I have had years where I planned at the end of the school year and then other years where I've waited until August to start planning. And I will say from my experience, it is much better to do planning in April and May than it is to wait until August. And here's why. Because I forget. I feel like I get really caught up in all of the pretty pictures and in all of the great ideas that I see, and people, I mean, they're sales pitching me and I'm falling for it and I'm saying that would be fabulous. I totally need to buy that and we need to do that this next year. It's going to be perfect for my kids. And I have completely forgotten what I just learned the previous year, which is that does not work for that kid. Whereas in April and in May, I'm super aware of what we just went through. I'm very clear on where each of my kids are developmentally and in each of the subjects and in all of their interests. It's just really fresh in my mind. So if I can do some rough planning right now, it's really helpful that when August comes and I look at my plan and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We decided that we didn't want to pursue that particular math class or maybe that math book because it didn't work for this child. It helps so much so that I'm able to stay anchored on what will actually work for my kids. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at my whole year and doing what's called a stop, start, continue, which means what do we need to stop doing because either it didn't work or it did work and we're done with that. We've completed that. We're ready to move on to the next thing. So then we stop, whatever that is. Things that we need to start because they're missing from our, we really felt like, oh, I wish I had done that. That would have worked really well if I had that in my schedule. Or it can just be, now they're ready for this. We didn't do it yet because it wasn't time, but now they're ready and we're going to start doing that. Or continue, things that did work and we need to continue doing them. Let me tell you a little bit about my kids that you have probably never met and never will, but just this gives you context to see why I'm making the decisions that I am. I have a 7-year-old and he is all over the place. He is very physically active. If there's anything big that he can climb on, he loves to jump. We have a gap between our peninsula in our kitchen and the next counter over here. And it's, I don't know, maybe a 2.5 foot gap. He thinks it's awesome to jump over that. I do not think this is awesome. We are working on obedience. However, that's just kind of who he is. He's a climber, he's a doer, he's an all the time active looking at things. He's the one most likely to get hurt. He also loves to read. When we go to the library, he wants as many books as I will possibly allow him to get, and he comes home and he just reads them so intently. He's very much a picture learner right now. We currently have a construction project going right now, and so he loves shoveling. Loves to be able to shovel all the dirt everywhere, hammer the nails in, pick things up and move them around, so he's really loving all that big construction learning stuff. This is kind of where he is in his learning. Our 9-year-old, on the other hand, is much more, she likes doing big things as well. She likes getting out and shoveling and dealing with the big construction things, but she also likes doing crafts where she wants to sit down and get out the glue and the glitter and create things. She loves being in the kitchen. She loves cooking and not the creating so much, but the making things beautiful. She wants to decorate things and make them look very gorgeous. She's also interested in building things, but she's kind of the directed one. She wants to have the instructions, tell me all the steps and I'll follow the steps and create whatever it is, and then I'll have this product at the end of it. My 12-year-old is incredibly imaginative. He loves reading books. He loves being up in his head all the time. He also loves engineering and robotic stuff. He loves coding. So he's hitting that point where he's just about ready to jump off and become a scholar. I can see several things in him that he's starting to lead the discussion and to lead his interest and start to develop his own personal interests. And so I see he's just about ready to make that jump, but maybe not for another couple months. And finally, my 16-year-old, I do have 2 older kids, but I'm not going to talk about them because they're off doing college. But my 16-year-old is developing his own personal interests. Specifically, he loves marine biology. He loves classifying animals. He loves figuring out how they work and all the different environments that they function in and how they interact with each other. Loves all of that. He loves piano. He spends forever on the piano playing and really developing that skill. He also loves doing big physical activities. He enjoys learning things when it comes to construction. Again, he likes all the learning that takes place there. We do make him do a lot of heavy physical labor. He doesn't love that part, but I do think it's an important part of his character development, and he's learning that he can work hard and do hard things. So he's doing that, and it's important. Okay, that is a lot of background information. I hope that helps when we're going forward here so you can see why I'm making the decisions I am with their education. So first off, what worked just for all of us when it came to this year, our schedule. We did field trips twice a month and we did service projects twice a month, and we just alternated on those. And that worked out really, really well. I was really impressed with how that kept me moving and kept us doing things all the time without overwhelming me. So that was a really good pace for me personally, and the kids loved it. We also had project learning, and I have a video on that. It just basically means doing hands-on stuff to learn about whatever your subject is. And my kids loved that. We did that once a week, and that one's kind of hard for me. I'm not as into the hands-on stuff, and so we only do that once a week, but they absolutely loved that. Another thing that worked really well for us this year was doing things in batches. I did dinners in batches. I just did a whole bunch of them at once. I'm also doing my YouTube videos in batches that I will do, several months worth of videos all at once, and that works better because I don't have to consistently make time for all of the setup and the teardown on either baking or YouTube videos, and I can just get all of that done and do a whole bunch at once. So batch work worked really well for us this year. We also did science out of this book right here. And this was really good. I did the math a little bit wrong. I thought that we had to do 3 lessons a week, and then I found out about November or so that we actually have to do 4 lessons a week. And I find that that's too much. We can't actually do 4 lessons a week. I lose the kids. They're super engaged for the first 2 lessons, and then one of them drops off for the 3rd, and then the other one drops off for the 4th, and I only have one kid who's sort of sticking around and paying any attention at that point. But I did like that book. I felt like we were getting a lot of stuff done and covering stuff that I wouldn't necessarily think of covering on my own. So if I'm using a textbook, I'll probably use one like that. Another thing that worked really well was our U.S. history. I used this book from Libraries of Hope. It's American History Stories. When it came to writing, we used The Good and the Beautiful, and they would write a page every day while I was reading Family Read to them, and that actually worked out really, really well because then they don't hate it as much. It's just something that we can do sort of in the background of reading, which they actually really enjoy. So the last thing that was such a win, and I should have mentioned it first because it was such a win, was piano for my 16-year-old. And we use Piano Panacea is the name of it. And it is an online program, and it works so well. His ability went from 0 to 900 miles an hour. It is just so impressive to listen to him play. I will often come into the room and think that it's actually the piano that has some memorized songs in it, and it's my child who has never had piano lessons before this year. And he's just doing so fabulous, and I see how much this is bringing out his personality, and he uses it to regulate his moods, and he uses it to create and to find a lot of joy in that. So a couple of things that did not work, that were absolute fails this year. Freezer meals. I made freezer meals, 6 weeks of meals, and I put them in these nice silver pans, and I froze them, and then I would thaw them out, and it was super convenient for me, but nobody would eat them. They weren't really that yummy because they got frozen and they were kind of yucky. And the noodles, I never figured out how to make the noodles work, so that was a fail. I stopped doing that. Like I said, we are still doing them in batches, but now I'm just doing different recipes that have a lot more fresh stuff, and it doesn't last as long because it's all fresh. And so it tastes better, the kids are eating it more, it's probably healthier, but it does require that I have to actually prep it every other week instead of every 6 weeks. So you win some, you lose some, but that's where we are right now on that. I also had 2 book clubs that I was in. So I had just a neighborhood book club, which I loved. It was my social, it was my fun, it was my outlet. And then I had Mission-Driven Mom book club, which I also loved. We're doing really challenging books, and it's a lot of effort, and I'm learning a lot from that, but I just could not do both. It was so overwhelming for me, and I ended up having to get rid of one of them, and I was so sad. And now the other one's canceling as well. So I'll have to find another source for my book club learning. This one I feel bad even mentioning because it's such a mixed bag, but we had a co-op for my 16-year-old and there were so many good parts of it. There were so many great aspects that I was really feeling tired trying to motivate this kid, and I could outsource that and have somebody else take care of that, and I was grateful for that. And it was also a subject that I couldn't get him excited about, and so it was nice to send that to somebody else, but in the end, it wasn't good. I don't regret doing it. But mostly what it was good for was kind of to say, look, you either do it with me nicely or you get to have this as your option. And he was like, I'd rather do it with you nicely. So I feel bad that that's the way that it went down. But in the end, it did end up being a good thing for him. He really enjoyed the people that he went with. It was good that way. The teaching style was just not really my teaching style. And it's also a subject that he doesn't love, and so I don't want to spend forever on. And it was very intense. You know, he was having to spend an hour or two every day on this subject that he doesn't even care about that much. So I felt like that's not a good use of his time. It's better to just hit the minimum on that subject and then really put the energy into marine biology, which he loves a lot more. So we dropped the co-op halfway through the year, and that ended up being a good thing too. So I'm grateful he went. I'm grateful we finished it. It's, you know, you learn and move on, and everything works together for the good. It's fine. It was a good experience, but I'm glad that we finished it halfway through the year so that he could just have that time available to work on the piano specifically, but also he had the time available to work on other things he was interested in. Another fail, this one really disappointed me because I thought that it was going to be such a success. It was a Libraries of Hope book, and it's called The Story of Liberty. And I was using it to teach the Constitution because I wanted to teach liberty throughout all history and in all the different countries to see where it came from and just the history of liberty, and that is not what that book is about. That book is about the total lack of liberty throughout time, which there's a lot more examples of that, and of course, sometimes the best way to really have that sink in is to see how terrible it is to not have liberty. But my objective in teaching Constitution is to say, how do we have liberty? What is the structure of our government? What is our personal responsibility? How do we need to personally live in our own lives to be free? That's where I wanted to focus, and that book just did not do that. So not a bad book, just not what I wanted it to accomplish. And so going forward, we got to find a totally different idea. And that is one of the things I haven't quite figured out yet. And the last thing that was really kind of an epic fail for us was the history. So here was my plan. I was going to read from this, the American History Stories, and then I was going to be brilliant and find wherever that happened to line up with the Story of the World activity book and do the activities that are in this book, which are brilliant and wonderful, and I love them and I want to do them. Yeah, guess what the weakest link in that chain was? That would be me. I had a really hard time finding where I wanted to have these activities drawn from. I had a really hard time lining it up, and I just hit the end of my energy. Not that I wasn't willing to do it, but I just needed to either have prepared it all beforehand or have somebody else do it for me, because the looking it up and trying to line it up was a deal killer for me. I'm not going to get rid of those books because I still feel like those are good activities and I want them for my kids. I just have to maybe do a little bit more prep work going into it so that I know exactly which activities I'm going to do and not have to make that decision right in the moment of school, which clearly doesn't work, and I didn't do it. Okay, so that's all the things that worked. That's the continue stuff. That's all the things that did not work. That's the stop stuff. Now I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the start stuff, the stuff that I think we need to bring into our home to be able to have a really effective homeschool next year. Specifically, I really feel like we need to do some engineering or some robotic stuff for my 12-year-old. He's really interested in this kind of stuff. And I think what we're going to do is get some kits for him. I don't know if we're going to do Crunch Labs or KiwiCo kits, or if there's another kit out there. Will you let me know? Are there some really cool robotics or engineering kits? Just put them in the comments, because I'm really searching right now. So if you know of some, let me know about it. For my 9-year-old who really loves crafts, I think we're going to have to go do some out-of-the-house stuff. They have like that finish-it-yourself stuff all over the place. And I think that is probably what we're going to need to do, is go do some glazing of pottery or something along those lines to help her go from where she is right now with loving to create and wanting to really follow the structure to having some finished products. And for my youngest, he's the big motion everywhere all the time. I think we're going to do some field trips that are big motion. We're talking about swimming, we're talking about tree runners. They put like a ropes course with all sorts of different obstacles that they have to go through and under and around and everything. up above your head by many, many feet. And my kids love it. There's something wrong with my children, but they love this kind of stuff. And so I think we're going to go do stuff like that for him just so that he can really develop and just feel like this is an important part of learning and it's an acceptable way to learn. So I need to incorporate big things like that. And the last thing I really want to incorporate is some marine biology stuff. Now we are so lucky because we live on the East Coast, and so there's just a lot of all of that kind of stuff going on around here. And I actually have my 16-year-old in a summer class, kind of a little camp in the summer that has to do with marine biology, just giving him an opportunity to dissect some things and to get out in the ocean and see what it's like out there and do a lot of different things that we really couldn't do if we were further inland. So I'm loving that his interests are aligning so well with where we live. So I really want to put some more effort into that. We might get him an oceanography book because I just think that might be the next step. Or I might actually go to a Nat and Fizz because he's really interested in that as well. And that's all knowledge that he needs to be able to pursue anything that he's interested in this area. But when I'm looking forward to next year, I just want to make sure that I have maybe a mentor for him. He had a mentor. I'm so sad because she's moving and he was just going to shadow her in the summer, but instead she had stuff come up and she's moving. So we lost that opportunity. I'm a little bummed, but it's okay. Things are going to work out. And I want to make sure that we do plenty of those things for him so that he gets to have lots of exposure to the different ideas around marine biology, just to make sure that he has a well-rounded education in the areas that he's really interested in. Okay guys, I know that was so much. If you stayed to this point in the video, you're a hero. Good job, that was amazing. This is just tons and tons of stuff and it's all really rough at this point. I'm probably going to change it. In fact, this is the second time I've filmed this video and I've changed stuff from the last time I filmed this video. This is rough, but I want to be able to lean on my experience this year and say, just remember, these are the things that they're developing into and that they're really excited about and they really want to pursue in some way, because we're going to get really busy in the summer and I don't want to lose all of this knowledge that I've just gained from teaching them for an entire year. So I hope this helps. You are so important. Being a mom and being a dad is so important and you're doing a much better job than you think you are. Keep it up and I will see you on the next one.